Hi everyone, this is my case study called Get This Child Out of My Room. My name is Jessica McGrath. We're going to start with a brief summary. So Susan is a new special education teacher in Schuyler. She is having a hard time collaborating with a third grade teacher, Nancy, who has a student with a behavioral disorder named Carl. Nancy wants Carl out of her room because he is having behavior that is impeding his learning and causing unsafe situations for Nancy. Carl's mom and dad recently got a divorce, and that may be affecting his behavior and changing what it looks like. Susan has updated Carl's behavior intervention plan, but all the adults seem to be self-absorbed into their own problems instead of staying student-centered. Category 1, problem identification and analysis. So what I know, Carl's parents just went through a divorce. Carl has a behavior disorder. It was being a self-abusive, and now it is turned toward staff. And Carl's mom is working a new job and is now making her work 50 hours a week. And as a single mom, that can be tough. Susan wants to do what's best for Carl, but it's difficult when Carl's teacher, Nancy, doesn't want him in the room. And one big concern is that there doesn't seem to be a pattern for Carl's behavior. What I need to know is, how much time does Carl spend with his dad? Has that changed since the divorce? Would this help Carl? What interventions has his teacher put in place? So has she put anything new in place? Was the previous plan put in place with fidelity? And the rewards that were currently in his plan, are they effective? Do we need to update them? And then what does mom have in place at home? Could she use more supports, interventions, services to help her meet Carl's needs? What is the problem? Carl's behavior is escalating, and his IEP team needs to find out how to effectively intervene. Susan and Nancy need to find a way to work together and work collaboratively to meet the needs of the student and stay student-centered. And mom is going to need some supports at home now that she is a single mom and having to work 50 hours a week. My plan of action. So I think that Susan needs to set up an observation initially in Nancy's room before jumping the gun. I would also have Susan have Nancy take a antecedent consequence behavior data. This is going to allow us to find a function of behavior and find a pattern. And then I also think that because we're having such new behaviors and seems to be escalating, that we should propose a reevaluation for Carl. Step 2, Susan should meet with Nancy to discuss the data and to create a plan that will address Carl's needs and stay student-centered. And I think Susan should reach out to her special education coordinator to see if there's any resources that would be available for Carl, or if there is any ideas that she may have about how to change an intervention for Carl. I believe also the IEP team needs to start meeting regularly on Carl to discuss his data and process progress. Step 3, we need to find resources for mom at home. Mom's newly divorced, single, and working a lot of hours, which means that she doesn't have all that time to spend with Carl. So we need to find resources that can help mom out in this situation and also support the emotional needs of the other kids in the home about the new divorce. It seems to be affecting not just Carl and mom, but everyone at home. Step 4, Susan needs to provide the whole Schuyler staff with training. I feel that if she would just center on Nancy, that it wouldn't help build a relationship. So I feel that we need to have education across the board about students similar to Carl. And this will help keep the program in fidelity and make sure it's consistently updated. If we all have training on the plan for Carl. If Susan doesn't feel comfortable, she should seek out her SPED coordinator, possibly asking if she would provide the training since she is new to the building. But we need to have training on inclusion, least restrictive environment, and student rights, as well as training on his plan. So my decision based on what is best for the students, there are state and federal laws in place with sports students, specifically like Carl, and we need to make sure that we're following them as a building. Carl's intervention plan needs to be adjusted in order for him to be successful at school. Obviously, the current plan that's in place is not working for him or Nancy, so we need to adjust it to make sure that we're staying student-centered and having success for Carl. And we need to have staff training about students that are struggling and changing mindsets of that we aren't just going to remove these children like they had done in the past, but we are going to make database decisions and we aren't going to jump to conclusions. My thoughts, feelings, and values related to this problem. So my thoughts is that Nancy's probably overwhelmed and doesn't know how to handle the situation. She may feel vulnerable, and it's easy to take her frustrations out on Susan. And in the past, when she would have situations like this, the previous special education teacher would just take them out of the room. Well, Susan's not doing that, and so now she feels like no one is supporting her. So I think that we need to address the vulnerability issue and lack of training and instruction that may be lacking in Nancy. I feel like Susan also doesn't have a lot of support and can be easily taken advantage of because she's new and there isn't a SPED coordinator that is there all the time and the superintendent's only there one day a week, that I feel that she could be easily taken advantage of and be forced into a situation or decision. But I value that Susan is constantly putting Carl's needs first, and she's staying out of the adult drama and making sure that Carl's getting what he needs. So unresolved issues. So how will Carl react to this new plan? Will this new plan be followed with fidelity by Nancy and all of the other staff members? What kind of support will mom need in the home, and will she use them? Does she even want them? And how can Nancy and Susan rebuild their relationship, because this isn't going to be the only student that they're going to work together on, and we need to build collaboration for student success. Also, how can we change the culture at Schuyler of being more inclusive instead of having a quick reactive state of mind? So standard 2 we're going to talk about is an education leader promotes the academic success and personal well-being of every student by enhancing instructional capacity. So how would I promote academic success of every student? I'm going to say we need to talk about inclusion in least restrictive environment and how that needs to be more of a priority at Schuyler instead of quick reactive changes to plans. We need to make sure that our intervention plans are put in place and that they are consistently followed with fidelity and that they are appropriate for each of the students' needs. We also need to provide trainings about policies and procedures that are given to us by the state and federal laws to make sure that we are in compliance. So how can I promote the well-being of every student? Well, we need to create a plan that supports Carl and teaches alternatives to his behaviors. So we need replacement behaviors to be taught to Carl instead of just don't do that. And Carl's family also needs support in order to improve his behavior. If he isn't feeling that he is valued and cared for, then his behavior is not going to change and it could even decrease even further. Communication and collaboration need to increase between home and school and between staff members at Schuyler. In order for Carl to have success, we all need to be working together and on the same page. How would I enhance instructional capacity? Increasing staffing based on student needs. It sounds like they really don't have a lot of wiggle room. So if someone would move into their district that needed a lot of support, I'm not for sure if they would be able to handle that. We need to set a time each week to make sure that we're making progress and we can make adjustments to his plan as necessary. The more that we communicate and talk about Carl, the better his plan and more success that he's going to have. We also need to have a multi-part training series on students similar to Carl. It sounds like this may be a weakness not just for Nancy, but throughout the Schuyler School. And thanks for listening, and this would be the conclusion of my case study.